Well, jeepers! You're listening to Smash or Pass.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another interview on the JayBee Milly channel. I am JB, and today the special guest who we'll be interviewing is Mr. Sandro Cleuzo. Thank you so much for joining.
Oh, my pleasure.
So, a lot of
Thank you
people
for having
watching
me.
this, thank you so much, will recognize your name from the credits, of course, of the Scooby Doo movie Scoob, which was absolutely amazing. We definitely had a great time watching that. But your career has spanned decades of amazing and iconic franchises that have personally been like favorites of mine growing up. But I wanted to start off by taking things back to the beginning, and at least according to IMDb, it began in 1994 with Thumbelina. But do you recall if this was your first job, or was there one maybe prior to this that IMDb may have left out?
Yes, to be honest, I started it like 5 years before that. Here in Brazil, I'm Brazilian, and I started my career in a small animation studio here in São Paulo, Brazil. And we used to produce TV commercials. So at the time, I'm talking about 1985 when I started. I was 15 years old when I started professionally. The studio I worked for, they produced important TV commercials for all companies, Coca-Cola, you name it. They made commercials, animated commercials. That's where I started. And after 4 years working commercials here, I moved to Dublin in Ireland, where Dan Bluth was located, the studio at the time. And I started working with them on my first feature film for cinema.
That is absolutely incredible. Like, especially considering the fact that you started working at 15. I can't think about, usually when you hear about us having like started something so early, you'd almost maybe think that there's a risk of burning out. But the fact that you've gone strength to strength with it is even more impressive. And was there any particular reason why you started at 15? Like, was there something that made a big impression on you when you were even younger, perhaps, or any particular names in the animation business that you looked up to, possibly?
Well, I think it's because, like every kid, every child, I was always into animation, watching cartoons on TV, and I used to draw a lot. And I used to, my parents would get me comic books, and every little spare money I had, I would buy comic books, and I would copy the characters, especially Disney comics. I used to draw the characters and watching TV. I remember we had like a whole afternoon of only cartoons on TV, one channel here. Not anymore, but at the time we had like from 12 o'clock until, let's say, 6 o'clock, all cartoons, all kinds of cartoons. Yeah, I used to watch and draw the characters, that I was watching. So I was always interested in drawing. And I started making my own comic books, my own characters, and I used to make a whole book cover, like front page, everything, the whole book. And then one day, my teacher in school we had an assignment. I finished my assignment first, and my friends were still working, and I had nothing to do. I just started drawing, and my teacher saw the drawings in my comic books, and she asked to borrow them. And so I gave to her, and she sent my drawings to a studio here in Brazil, in São Paulo, to this artist who is considered the Walt Disney of Brazil. He's like very popular here, and his characters are very popular. And he has like comic books for like decades, very popular, animation, merchandising everywhere, very popular guy. And she sent to him, and he liked it, and he gave me he offered me an internship to learn to do comics for him. I was 14 at the time. That's why I started so early, because I was offered to do an internship with this artist. So after like a few weeks with them, like a month or so, I moved into animation. That's why I started so early. So I didn't go to school for animation or for drawing. I just went straight to work, and I learned on the job. Yeah, I learned by working.
That is incredible. And do you recall at that early stage exactly what type of characters that you would have been drawing?
Yeah, I used to draw, of course, like not, I wasn't really great. I was like starting, but I could draw like very cartoony characters. Let's say like the Disney characters, I could draw them because I used to copy the comics. So I was more into cartoony. I didn't do actually any of life drawing or sketches of people because, like I said, I didn't go to school, and so nobody told me to do that. I just drew cartooning. I started doing that after when I started working professionally. I start to understand that you need to learn more about drawing, like the human body or animals or how they are put together, But I just did like cartoony characters, and because of animation for me came easily at the beginning because somehow I understood, and when I started working in TV commercials, I would start producing at the first day. Like I was doing in between drawings for a commercial, so and my drawings were working, and they were giving me more. So, but I'll do like cartooning, more like Disney, like Donald Duck, that kind of cartooning.
I think it must have lended itself perfectly to, I guess, some of the earlier roles that you had at the beginning of your career as a character animator. And in terms of that work itself, say, I guess to explain it to someone that maybe isn't that in the know with the animation business, what exactly does that type of work entail?
As a character animator?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The character animator is the actor of the film. It's basically the actor. Like you are just drawing the cat. You're making the acting by drawing. That's your tool. The drawing. Drawing is your tool. Is the pencil or now digital. Like the stylus on the digital tablet, but it's still drawing. So, but the main thing is the acting. Is you have to make the character think, act, do like the emotion. You have to understand emotion. You have to understand acting. You have to understand how dialogue works and all the mechanics of movement. It's very complex, but you have to learn all the mechanics to be able to do the performance. But in the end, the character animator is the actor of the animated movie. It makes the character act. The main character, all the characters are the actors of the animated movies. So, for instance, if I'm doing Scooby Doo, like the dog, I need to animate the dog. I need to understand how a real dog actually moves, the mechanics of the anatomy, and even though it's cartoony, you have to understand the real thing to be able to know how to like his paw would lift or his head would turn. You have to understand the real thing. So, and you animate by doing poses, nice poses for the particular shot that you are animating. But in the end, didn't have a soundtrack of the voice before. Let's say if Scooby saying something, so you have that dialogue before, and you animate to that dialogue. You listen to the dialogue. You think, okay, how I can make this particular shot where Scooby saying this, let's say, oh, lunch or something like that. How would I do that? So you think about how can maybe the head can shake, or you can do whatever you want, but you have to think about the performance for that particular dialogue. So that's what a character animator do, is the actor of the animated film. We just draw instead of the live actor. We just use our pencils or styles.
See, I love that so much because there is that saying that goes around quite a lot that the most compelling and realistic on-screen performances aren't done necessarily by actors, but by animators and pencils. So I think it really does speak to that mentality. But it's even more interesting that you use Scooby as an example because of course, I guess me personally, I would assume that it would be slightly easier to try and capture the emotion of a person because there's obviously real life example of, I guess, how a person would act in a certain situation. And so, from your point of view, do you find it more difficult or about the same when it comes to character animating on a human being versus, I guess, a different species?
Honestly, the human figure is more difficult. Like if you're animating a person like a human character, that would be more difficult because we know how humans behave. We watch each other all the time. You talk to people. So if you do something weird, it doesn't look right. Like an animal like Scooby, you can do anything that because dogs don't talk, dogs don't act like that, you know. So you have more leeway, you have more freedom. So an animal character is easier to animate. It's more, you have more freedom.
Yeah, that makes
Like
sense.
let's say if you're animating the Scooby gang, you know, the Daphne, all the, you know, Fred, all those, they're more difficult because they have to act like humans more. So if you do anything funky, anything weird, people can tell, even though it's cartoony, but it still have to be real, you know, in terms of acting, movement. So animals would be more fun, more easy to do.
Yeah, because there's always that risk with a human of it maybe crossing over to that whole uncanny valley territory. But I guess in terms of the exact precision it takes from your work being a character animator to get all that right, do you recall a movie or an animated feature that you watched before your career, or I guess at the early stages, that really solidified in your mind the type of work that you wanted to do?
Yes. Early on, when I was a kid, I remember watching all kinds of cartoons. Okay, not only American cartoons, the classic cartoons like the Looney Tunes or Woody Woodpecker, all those kinds, classical, but also Japanese animation. They used to show lots of Japanese animation. But to me, it was the Disney animation. Any Disney animation that I saw, shorts. No, at the time I couldn't see lots of feature film from Disney. It was mostly shorts on TV. But I could tell the animation was more fluid, it was better. It was like the quality was. I could tell. I was very small, but I could tell the difference between a Japanese animation or Hanna-Barbera or even Scooby Doo, the TV show. I could tell the difference. The Disney was more fluid. That's the animation I liked it. But so for me, it was always the Disney animation. But then when I was, let's say, 13 or 14, I saw for the first time a Don Bluth film, the first one that they made, The Secret of NIMH, their first feature film. And I was blown away. When I saw that movie, I was like, I want to work. I didn't know who they were, to be honest. I only knew Disney. But when I saw that movie by Don Bluth, the first one they made, I said, I want to work for them. For me, I was blown away by the quality, the design, and the whole mood of the movie. And for me, from that day on, I said, I want to work for them. That's what I did. My focus was so intense that I prepared my portfolio for a year, saved my money, and I flew to Ireland from Brazil to Ireland to Dublin, and I knocked on the door and asked for a job because I really wanted to work for him because of that movie. So I would say Disney movies and then The Secret of NIMH that made me want to be an animator.
See, that is amazing how there's so many, I guess, like pillars of the animation world and I guess the whole entire genre in general that really influence, I guess, different people in terms of what they want to do. And I think one of the features that really stuck out to me growing up that impacted me in a way that I don't think I'd been impacted before was the Iron Giant, which IMDb commented that I think you worked on a special edition of that. Do you remember
Yes.
that at all? And kind of how that came about?
Yes, the thing is, Brad Bird, the director, he for the first movie, he had some limitations in terms of budget and time. So there were two sequences in the movie that he couldn't do at the time for the original. And after what, 20 years, I don't know how long it took, but he was able to convince Warner Brothers to go ahead and finish those two sequences that he was supposed to finish for the original. And they said yes. And I was working at the time for, actually I was here in Brazil, and then my friend Ken Duncan, he has a studio in Los Angeles called Duncan Studios. He was the animator of former Disney animator. He did the Meg for Hercules. He did in Pocahontas. He did the Thomas, the kid. Anyway, he was like top. He did Jane in Tarzan for Disney. Oh. So he's a top animator. He opened his own studio in Los Angeles, and Brad Bird was able to shop around for a studio because Warner couldn't produce that anymore. They didn't have the people in the pipeline to make it. So they were shopping around, and Ken Duncan was the studio that they chose. And Ken called me, say, "Sandro, we're gonna do Iron Giant, and if you'd like to work on the project," I said, "Yeah, of course." So I moved back to LA to work on these two sequences.
It always makes me happy when there's almost reinserted parts that were taken out previously. Like I remember, back when we were when the Beauty and the Beast first came out, and they deleted that song and then they added it back in for a special feature. I think that's always some of the best moments from films, is when there's a director's cut that comes out almost, which is impressive. So I guess, what is your whole take on deleted scenes, and I guess a director's point of view versus, I guess, something that a studio would demand be taken out, that whole debate?
Yes, of course, it's always the director's vision is the important thing. A story evolves so much. Sometimes you're working something, and then when you see the whole everything cut together, like in a screening for the whole thing, you start seeing problems, things that is slowing down, or sequence that are not needed or not important. So I understand sometimes they have to make cuts. And so, because in the end, it's all the director's vision anyway. And sometimes you have a committee of people, it's not only the director, it's other people, the money people, executives. Sometimes they demand some changes, which is very normal in our business. So, but as an animator, when I have scenes cut that I worked so hard on, it's very difficult for me. I mean, for all of us, you have to understand and let go. But every time you lose a scene that you worked so hard on, and sometimes people liked what you did, and you like what you did, the result, it's very painful to have those scenes cut. So I'm not too crazy about having scenes cut when animated. I think they should pay more attention before we start animating, but it doesn't happen that way. It's always, you always are losing some shots in every film. I lost almost every film I worked on. I lost a few shots because they changed the story, or they had to trim down a sequence, or it happens a lot.
Yeah, it must be a shame, especially when people actively like what was done before and everything. And
yes.
I guess it happens so commonly. It's always such a shame to talk about. But I think once in a while, in terms of, I guess, anyone's career, but with yours in particular, there's been so many things that have almost been like lightning in a bottle scenarios, where it's just been the right film at the right time, all done in such a perfect way. And for me, I can't speak to you without mentioning The Emperor's New Groove, because that was just a movie that completely changed my life, because I think it was my favorite. In fact, it still probably is my favorite Disney movie of that era. And it's funny because when I first joined university, I joined the Disney Society, and they were arranging a movie night. And so this whole group of students had to vote on what movie that they watched at this social event, and by far the Emperor's New Groove won that vote. So it's a
That's
real
fantastic.
testament to how a whole like even like a whole generation has grown up on it, and now it's at like the very top of the list for a lot of people. But do you remember
That's
how your
fantastic.
like role on that movie came about at all?
Yeah, it's fun that you were mentioning that movie because my favorite one that I worked on as an animator. I had so much fun working on those characters, and it became a cult actually. When I go to, let's say, Italy or other countries, they always want me to draw the characters from that movie because they love it. They really love that movie. So I'm very happy about that because I think some of my best work was done for that movie. I think. And what happened was I was at Disney. I had worked on Fantasia 2000. I don't know if you remember Fantasia, the 2000. It's the last sequence with the Firebird, with his pride. I was animating that. And then at the end, we had like I had a choice. You had, or either Emperor's New Groove, which was a different name before, or different movie completely. It used to be called Kingdom of the Sun. And it was a big epic movie. And we had that choice, or Atlantis. And I remember seeing the artwork, and I really loved what they were doing on the Kingdom of the Sun. Was like more my style. I liked it, so I chose to work on that. So so we started working on that movie, which was very different than Emperor's New Groove. The same theme, like South America, you know, Incas. I mean, the whole thing was the same. But then I did a lot of animation. We were doing production work for that. I did like over 100, several seconds of animation. Some scenes were in color. Everything was working normally. And one day they decided to watch the whole movie, and they didn't like it. The executives didn't like it. Now we need to change this, and they decided to get a new director. And the main director was let go of that movie. Was actually his movie, so he was let go. And this new director had 1 week to come up with his team, the story team. They had 1 week to come up with something new. Otherwise, it would be layoffs. Everybody would be gone. So in 1 week, they came up with Emperor's New Groove. So they pitched that idea. The executives at Disney loved it and started producing that movie. So it became the Emperor's New Groove. Some of the characters were the same, but most of the characters were completely changed.
Wow.
So that's how I ended up working on that. And
that's incredible. That really is incredible, because you never would think to look at it that it was originally going to be something else entirely, because it always just seems so purposeful and calculated. It is really incredible. But you mentioned that you feel like some of your best work was put into that movie. Can you recall any particular characters that you feel like speaks to that best work?
Yeah, what happened? Okay, I was the lead animator on that movie, in Personal Groove, because on the Kingdom of the Sun, I was like getting notes. People were noticing my work, and at the very end, I was put in charge of the main female character. There was the love interest of Cusco. At one time, Cusco had the love interest, which in Personal Groove he doesn't have, but he had one. Was this girl called Mata, and she was like a tough, like cocky, tough little girl from the village. And I remember it was very funny because he was transformed into a llama, but he would be still hitting on her, and she would like punch him in the face. It was very funny. And at the end, I think they would be together. So because I was a lead on that one, and they changed the story and they cut the character. The character was out, Mata. I did one test with her, model sheets and everything. but the character was out, and they told me, Sandro, we had to cut your character. She's no longer in the movie, but we want you to give all these other characters to do. And so they gave me like 4 or 5 characters that I could do whatever I wanted. Is the theme song guy that comes out of the cake. I did the old man that's thrown out the window, and the waitress, and there's also this in Cusco is choosing the wives, all the girls in line. There's this guy who's very nervous with the big hat, funny hat. So I was giving all these small characters, and I had completely freedom to do whatever I wanted with those characters. Those were my characters. So each one's different because you have the theme song guy. He's a performer. He's like a singer. So he's just like jumping and singing and very active. You have the old man who trembles. Oh, they threw off my groove, whatever. Very old guy. And you have the waitress who is like, she doesn't move too much. She's like, whatever, you know, very different one. And you have the guy that's helping Cusco choosing their wives, and he's very nervous, like, oh, please don't kill me, you know, because anything wrong, he can be killed. So he's very nervous. So he's always with his hands like trembling. So each character was so different than the other. And I had a blast because the director let me free to do whatever I wanted. And I remember I never felt this much freedom in other projects. That's why I loved it. So all those small characters are my animations.
For sure. I mean, it's so interesting to find out that Cusco was originally going to have a love interest as well, because then from what I think, that's one of the things that people notice eventually about The Emperor's New Groove, that it's one of the only Disney movies that there isn't that love interest character. So it kind of makes it so interesting that it started out very much of that notion and then became a bit more different, which is what we eventually saw. But I do know that they eventually did give Cusco some type of love interest when they brought the movie to like a spin-off TV show. Do you know if any of your characters? No, I was just wondering if they reused it, but very different tone. Of course, the show is like the movie is still remains to be iconic, and so there's so many sequences that I can think of that make it that incredible film. But are there any scenes in the movie that stand out to you as being particularly memorable?
That I did. I like the old man when he's like, after he's thrown out the window. Even before, I like the animation I did there. But when he says, when he meets Pasha says, "What happened?" He says, "Oh, I threw off the Emperor's groove." And he says, "His groove, the rhythm where he lives his life." I love that part. I think I did a good acting piece there, and I really like doing the guy that is helping Cusco choosing the wives when he's all nervous. I love doing him. He was like my first favorite character, I think. Yeah, actually, that's the character. When I started doing animation on him, some people are noticing, people are making copies of my drawings, and this top animator, he got my shot to show his crew, his team, my animation to inspire them. So people are noticing. And I lost some good animation on that character because that scene was trimmed, was cut like in half almost. And they had to tell me, "Sandro, I'm gonna have to let go some of your shots." And I did my best work on that. I mean, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely get that. And it is almost like we were speaking about before when they added in some extra sequences and kind of made some adjustments to the Iron Giant. And so for all Emperor's New Groove, I think is pretty perfect how it is. Would a kind of return to that role to almost give us like an extended cut of that movie, would that ever interest you at all?
I don't know. One thing I would like to have seen is like a DVD or something like a bonus.
Yeah.
With the animation we did for the first one, showing the first Kingdom of Sun with with the animation we did there. Some great animation were done for that particular for the first version of the movie. You know, I'd love to see something that if they could release something. We did so much work. Even we had a studio in California doing, in another studio in Florida doing some animation for that too sequence. And I think even Paris, Disney had a studio in Paris, in France, also doing animation for that. There's so much animation that they should show as a bonus, I think.
Yeah, there's so many situations, even doing this show where someone showed us something or told us something, and it's like sometimes a lot of the times with these Scooby Doo projects, I guess there's little to no DVD bonuses, and so there's so
Right.
many times where the person that worked on it actually has like full on reels of the things, and you almost think to yourself, it's really cool to see this here, but why haven't they included that on the DVD? So I think we're kind of getting to a stage where the DVD bonus features, I think, need to find some type of resurgence, because it's a shame that they're not really utilized as much as they used to be.
I agree, and they also can show in let's say in streaming like Disney Plus or something like that. They can show some extras, you know, like that. People love it, and I think it's a shame they don't do it.
I completely agree. It is a shame, and I suppose it would also be a shame if the work of a lot of, you know, what you do went to waste in some way. And like we say, like the best performances on screen happen through people like you and that whole process. But of course, a lot of that is as well who they cast in those roles, be it a celebrity or a voice actor. So from your point of view, is there any anxiety that a character that you've worked really hard on, you're really happy with the design, is there any anxiety when, say, the studio then casts a celebrity as opposed to a professional voice actor?
Yeah, sometimes we actually don't agree too much on some of the choices. You know, but you do the best you can with the voices with the actor that you get. But I remember even some directors didn't have control over that. I remember one particular director, I won't mention his name, but he wanted someone for a voice, some actress actually was a female character for some voice, and he couldn't get it because the management, the executives, they wanted somebody else. So even the director sometimes don't have this say of, usually should be the director, is his vision, right? Or the directors. But sometimes it's not even their choice. You know, I'm talking about big studio like Disney or Warner's or maybe DreamWorks. I don't know. Big studios is not only up to the director. Sometimes it's more than that. It's more people. So yeah, but sometimes we don't agree too much in some of the choices. But there's nothing we can do. But yes, it happens. We get very anxious about who's going to do the voice. You know.
Yeah, it's a bit of a gamble, because I think it's possibly a bit easier when it's a character that's new to that franchise. So I think when people think about a character like Kronk, be it for better or worse, I think that people look at Patrick Warburton's performance as being quite synonymous with that, and people do enjoy that performance. But then there's other situations where, say, you've got, for instance, like Frank Welker doing a voice ever since like the early 60s, and then they come along and replace them with a YouTuber with 50 million followers. So I guess there are kind of different levels to it. But I guess without mentioning any of the negative, if you don't want to, is there any instance where you've designed a character and it's been given to almost a celebrity voice or even a professional voice actor voice where you felt that it really did align with your vision for the character?
It did?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was lucky in some many times. So like, okay, the voice for the old man I did in the Emperor's New Groove was perfect, and the voice for the waitress was also perfect, and the voice for the guy who was very nervous, we'll call him the official. He didn't have a name, but he was also perfect. I was very happy, you know. I did some work on this movie called Home on the Range, Disney movie with the cows. The sheriff was the voice was perfect. Also, I did the sheriff for that movie, and the actor Richard Real. He was like, when I heard the voice, I was like, wow, I know what to do. I completely knew what to do. I knew how to act when I heard his lines. It's amazing. When that happens, it's magical because the voice is giving you all the performance that you can see the animation, you know. So that was perfect for me. Sometimes, yeah, I think those are the characters. Oh, also on same movie, Home on the Range, I did the goat, the old goat, Jab, and his voice was also perfect. So I was very lucky with those, I think.
It is really interesting that you mentioned Home on the Range, because I guess in the whole lineup of Disney movies, it's unfortunately not one that you ever hear a lot of people talking about, but it was one of my absolute favorites. You know, I don't know if that's like an unpopular opinion or not, but I had like a set amount of 5 DVDs that I would take to my mum's work for the summer,
Yeah.
and that was one of them. And it just kind of stands out to me so much from all
Oh,
those
cool.
characters, and the villain song was just
Yeah.
completely amazing. But it stands out in history as I believe it was possibly Disney's final feature-length
Yes.
2D film. And so what
It
was it kind
was.
of like to work on almost the end of a particular era for Disney?
It was very sad because, like you're saying, it was the last one. Uh, uh, but it's funny because I was working on that. I had so much fun. And I agree with you. It's not that terrible, but I don't know why it became like a bad movie for many people. But anyway, I was working, have a great time on it, um, and somehow it didn't feel like the last one at the time because they were developing another project in Florida, this Florida studio, that they had to hand draw animation. It mixed with CG animation, like a hybrid movie. So at the time, it didn't feel like the last one. What happened was because we were finishing Home on the Range, people are like moving to CG for Chicken Little. Or I think it was Chicken Little was the first one. People are moving to that, learning CG and everything. And they asked me if I would like to continue do storyboards or continue do something in CG. I said, no, I want to draw, I want to do animation. And they said, okay, the only way you can continue doing that is if you move to Florida, because Florida, the studio in Florida, they're going to still make 2D animation. Say, okay, I'll go there. So I moved from California to Florida to work on the new hand-drawn movie that had CG also, but it was mostly hand-drawn. And what happened was, after like a year working there, we started producing, doing animation, and they decided to cancel the movie, shut down the whole studio, and everybody was gone, was laid off. So when I was working on Home on the Range, it didn't feel like the last one. It became the last one because they canceled this other movie in Florida that I went to work as a supervising animator. It used to be called My Peoples, and then they changed the title to A Few Good Ghosts. So I had two characters in that, and like I said, we did production work, and after a few months, they decided to shut down the whole thing. So and then in the end, Home on the Range became the last one.
Yes, it's just interesting. I think it's almost the reverse of Emperor's New Groove in a way, where I think it was the right movie, but possibly it hit as such an unlucky period, because I believe Chicken Little was fast-tracked as a response to how popular Shrek had become at the time, which was CG, use of modern pop songs and everything like that. So
Yeah,
it is a shame with Home on the Range, because it is definitely one of those hidden gems. Like I say, like, and even just digging in the behind the scenes details of them, like in that whole yodeling song, I've even like read somewhere that they had to have like 3 separate people to get all the different types of inflections
yeah,
of the yodel. And so when you hear
yeah.
stuff like that, it's just you can't help but marvel at that. But I guess I am curious to know, you did mention just then that you began to work on a movie that was part live action and part hybrid, animation. So was this the Enchanted movie?
No. That was the Florida one that I mentioned was hybrid in terms of it had hand-drawn animation and CG animation computer, not live action. That's the one they canceled, they shut down. Yeah, but I did work on Enchanted, later on, years after that, But the one in Florida that I mentioned called My Peoples, and then they changed to A Few Good Ghosts. It was supposed to be a hand-drawn animation with some CG computer characters interacting.
I wonder if they'll ever go back to that era, because I think I see so much on online spaces that there's a lot of people that really miss that era, and I guess some people possibly for the nostalgia of how it felt to boot up one of those old tapes or one of the earlier DVDs. But I think that the quality of those 2D animations are just so good to look back on, and I guess, like you say, it was quite a bit after, the time of the Home on the Range and stuff. But I think the Enchanted movie encapsulated that, because of course it was one of those ones where they almost could have their cake and eat it. They could cast their celebrity actors, but then they also made it justifiable within the story. But I think it really gave a lot of goodwill to it, the fact that it was a way for people to go back into that era of 2D animation again. And so, do you have any memories, or do you remember what it was like to work on that first Enchanted movie?
Yeah, it was really fun. It's another project that I think I did some of my best work. What happened was I was working back. I was back at Disney. I think that was 2006. I was back at Disney for a project that also they canceled after. I was there for a couple of weeks. They decided to cancel the whole movie. So I didn't have anything to do, and then James Baxter, who was the supervising, the animator director for the whole film, for the whole the animation section, he had his own studio. He opened his own studio at the time. He was making that. He was producing the animation segments. So he called me up and to do some animation because he knew I didn't have anything to do because the project I was working on had been canceled. So he asked me, he said, yeah, of course. Really, not like James is one of my favorite animators ever, And I never had worked with him before. So it was the first time working for him. And it was great. He gave me great shots to do, very important scenes. I had a blast working on it. And I remember I started working at his studio in Pasadena, California for like a couple of weeks. And then I had to move back to Brazil because I had to come back. And but he wanted me to keep working for him. So I worked from here, long distance. I was here in São Paulo in Brazil and I was working for him there. And I would do my animation, send over through the internet, the pencil tests. He would approve my work, and then I would pack the whole thing, all the drawings, and ship it via FedEx or something like that. So it was very always I was always nervous because what if it didn't arrive, all those drawings? So I had to make copies of every single drawing here to have it. But that's how I worked on the movie from here, and I would send the drawings to them so they could finish.
And to that end, then, is IMDb accurate when it says that you also worked on the sequel that came out quite recently, which was Disenchanted?
Yeah, I did, but I didn't do much. I just did like maybe a couple of shots, maybe 3 or 4 shots. I don't know. I couldn't do much, on that one. And that was a little different for me to work. The way I worked is like I do when I deliver something like my animation, because we animators, we do what they call rough animation, right? We do a little. Some animators are rougher than others, but even if it's clean, it's still considered rough animation. Our drawings go to another artist called cleanup artist, and he's gonna go over our drawings and do a final line. In that line that they do, that's the line that's gonna be painted for the final movie. So when I deliver my animation, I deliver very clean drawings, like a model, precise. I want them just to follow my drawings. On this new Enchanted, I couldn't do that. They told me to do just to send the rough, and somebody else would do the drawing, the final drawing for me. So I don't like to work that way. So it wasn't that, in that aspect, it wasn't really as good as the first one for me.
So I guess that maybe changes up my next question slightly. I guess making it a bit more general. So from, say, a movie like Enchanted, which was released in, say, 2007, say about that time and past, and then compare that to some of the work you've done now, is there any differences that you've noticed in how you would go about a job based on how the technology has changed throughout the years?
Well, in terms of my approach is the same. The only thing that is different for me, for us, for animators, is that we're doing digitally. We're not animating on paper anymore. So I've been working digitally for a few years. I think the last project that I worked on paper, but only because the studio they prefer paper, was on Mary Poppins Returns. We did the whole thing on paper, but that was 2017, I think, 18, I don't know. But from that time on, it's all digital. So my approach is the same. If I animate on paper, or is the same, digital is the same as the paper. The approach, how I do it, the key poses, how I plan, how I rough it out. The only difference is that now it's all digital, but the approach is the same.
Do you find yourself enjoying digital either more or less than paper?
I like the paper because I'm more traditional, and I love the old Disney films, and I love the way the original desk is with the disc, and flipping the paper, and for me, it's always the best. But for production today, I understand using digital. It makes more sense because things are faster. You don't have time. And usually, we don't have enough time anymore like we used to. Things has to be a little faster to produce. So digital animation is easier to change, easier to send over fast, a quick test. Because if you're doing on paper, you have to scan every drawing in the import into a program. It takes time, right? Digital, you draw digitally and then hit play, and you can see the animation. Then you can send the file straight to the studio, to the director. If you want to change something, you can copy and paste something. You can enlarge. Let's say the head is too small, you make it a little bigger. In drawing, you have to redraw the whole thing. So for production, it's easier today to do it digitally because of the time, and also you can change it easily.
That's incredible. And I guess moving on to one of the works that you've done quite recently that I think a lot of our audience members are going to be quite familiar with is that Scoob movie. But before you worked on the Scoob movie, how familiar were you with the Scooby Doo franchise?
Of course, yeah, I always knew the Scooby Doo characters on the TV show, the original. I'll be honest, I don't watch lots of other, because I love the original TV show. I love it because not only because it's the first one, but the designer was this artist called Ivo Takamoto. He was the designer of the movie, the original, right? And he was a Disney artist before joining Hanna-Barbera. I don't know if you know the story, but he was a Disney artist, and he used to work as an assistant to my favorite animator ever, Milt Kahl. Milt Kahl was a Disney, one of the 9 Old Men. He's my all-time favorite. I study his drawings all the time. And Ivo Takamoto was his assistant, and he was like an amazing artist. He never became an animator at Disney, so he left, went to Hanna-Barbera, became the top designer of Hanna-Barbera. He designed most of the characters for all the shows, and he came up with the design of Scooby Doo characters and the original. So that's why I love it for that. So I don't watch the spin-off, not spin-offs, but I don't watch when they change styles of the movie. I don't watch. I don't accept it. You know. So when they call me to work on the CG movie, I really found interesting because, first of all, I love Ivo Takamoto's design, right, the original. But then they want to transform it to more three-dimensional, more CG. It had to be CG, a little different. So what's the challenge was to not losing a lot of the flavor of the original, but coming up with something a little fresh, a little new, more modern. That was the challenge. And I remember the first version, because I worked on Scooby had a first version that was discarded. I worked on that. Very different designs. And I remember they were changing the design of the dog, Scooby, and they were changing some of the characters in a way that I didn't understand why, because, and I told them, I said, listen, the design of Scooby is perfect the way it is. Why change it, you know? And they were changing a lot for the first version. Then they discarded the whole thing. We had to stop working for a year or so, and then they start working again the new version with new people, new artists. So they called me back, and we're able to do the Scooby the way it was designed. We only changed a few things on the main characters, you know. But yeah, I was familiar with the Scooby characters. Yeah.
Yeah, that is incredible, because with everyone that we've spoken to that worked on that first Scoob movie, have all said something quite similar. Like, I remember speaking to Michael Korinsky about Red Shirt
Yeah, but
Shaggy, and when I mentioned it, it was like, oh no, if there's no Red Shirt Shaggy, we need to have it Green Shirt all the time. And so I do completely agree that those initial designs that Mr. Takamoto did were just perfect, and I do kind of admit to feeling a bit of trepidation when I see them being changed in any way. But one thing that I was impressed with when I went on your pages was some of the art that you did featuring the gang as kids. And so was there
Yes.
any like particular member of the gang that you were, I guess, excited to reimagine, or I guess to keep as traditional as possible?
Yeah, Shaggy and Scooby as a puppy. I think Shaggy was the one that was more. I really liked the way he came up. You know, yeah, I think it was also Daphne. Daphne, how do you make Daphne like as a kid? It was kind of interesting too. Yeah, but I think for me, Shaggy was the one that I think I was more into it to make it right.
Shaggy was really interesting, and especially that photo, that drawing that you did of, I think it was Shaggy with a girlfriend. Was that meant to be
Oh
part of that
yeah,
initial story, or was that just like concept? Here we go, like type thing.
yeah. That was for the first version that they changed it. They were supposed to be more around, I think, 14 at the time, and they had and Shaggy had the little girlfriend there, and Scooby would be like, I don't know, dog's age would be like what, 1 year old, like a little bigger already. Yeah, that was a version that was for the first version that they were making, and that they changed it. So in the final Scooby, only had them as kids, a little younger. Yeah.
Do you recall what type, like what that whole original story was, and what eventually, like, we didn't see, that what that whole kind of premise would have been?
Well, in the first version, I remember they had. I don't remember the story very much, but I remember having. We're going to do Atomic Ant. I don't know if you remember that show. And also Penelope Pitstop was supposed to be in it. I did several drawings of girls to come up with something different for that. Yeah, those two were. Oh, in the shark. What's the name of the shark?
Oh, Jabberjaw.
Yeah, Jabberjaw. It was supposed to be on that too. I remember doing lots of drawings of expressions for Jabberjaw. And the villain was different. The villain was Dick was the same, dastardly, but in the original, the first version, he was more closer to the original design. And for some reason, they decided to change for the Scooby version. I don't think it's too bad, but I still like the original, the one I did for the first version, because it was more similar to the original design, closer to the nose shape and everything. Yeah, but they decided to change it. So
Yeah, I saw that. It was like it had a really cool steampunk vibe, I think, as well. Like it
yeah.
looked so awesome. And were there any design choices that you made, or I guess any feats that you achieved with visualization that you were quite proud of from the Scoob movie?
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Scoob as a puppy, I think it came up really well. I was proud of that. But even the villain, Tik, I think it came out. I mean, the design, the final design is not like I would prefer the first version, but it came up. I was happy with that too. And what else? Again, Shaggy, I think it came up really close to the way I wanted. Of course, it's not only my drawings. We had in a film like this, you have several artists, and sometimes they do first versions of it, and then another artist take it over and do changes. For is normal. It's not like the job of one person. So for Shaggy, for Dick, for the villain Dick Dastardly, I had some drawings from other artists that I was able to refine them and get some ideas from it and do my version. And so it's a mixture of several artists.
And despite the artists and everything, in terms of like conceptuals and the ideas for characters and perhaps how they would look in practice, were there any characters that were a bit of a challenge to design?
Yes, Captain Caveman was kind of a little difficult. Was he in the Scooby movie, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was in the initial Scoob movie, but then I think it was Bill Holler showed us like there was like a test footage where he looked really different and he was like running through this like cave panel.
Yeah. So he never ended up in the Scooby movie, right?
He was in it, I think, for like a 10-minute segment.
Right. Yeah. So that was the one that was fun to draw, but it was kind of challenging because any line in the wrong place would look strange. That was kind of challenging to do. And also, what else? I think there's another one. The Falcon. What's his name?
Oh, Blue Falcon.
Yeah, Blue Falcon. That was kind of difficult too, because of it's like a superhero. Had to be perfect. It's the kind of drawing that, again, a line in the wrong place, it makes it off somehow. So that was kind of challenging because of the precision. Anything in the wrong place, it didn't look like him.
I think it made it. Yeah, I think the Blue Falcon was really cool because I think making the Blue Falcon that we get prominently in the movie the son of the original Blue Falcon kind of meant that it could do a lot more in terms of changing the designs a bit, but to the point where it made sense. So I think it was a really good design for the Blue Falcon. I've got like the action figure somewhere, but I think it must have gone walkabout.
It's more modern armature,
Yeah, like the scales. It's amazing.
Oh yeah.
And do you have any favorite? Yeah, perfectly. And do you have any favorite memories from working on Scoob at all?
Oh, for me, it was getting the approvals from the director and Michael Korinsky too. He was also always there too. For me, getting the approvals on the drawings I did were very rewarding, because I worked so hard on them to get, because when I do a drawing, or like, let's say I'm doing expressions for them, it's not like I just do a drawing, it's done. Sometimes you struggle, like, let me go over this, let me try again. Yeah, it's a little off here. Let's reduce the mouth shape, the size, or let's change the mouth shape. Maybe the eyes too big. So there's always changes. It's not like you just, I just did this and it's done. It's a little struggle. So when you work so hard on it, people don't realize. People think many people think, oh, it's just draw, you know. No, it is. If you, the drawing has to be right, and sometimes it doesn't come out right at first pass. You have to keep doing it several passes, so it takes a few days. So when that, for me, getting the approval and having them say, "Oh, this is great," was very, very rewarding. Those are the moments I liked it.
That's perfect.
And then I what I love it too is it's something that I really love it when they transform that into a CG model. But when they do it right, I love it, you know, because it's your drawing being used to help them modeling in CG. That's actually some of my principal work today is doing that for films, for CG films. I do drawings to help them build the models in the right way. So that's very rewarding too, when you see the CG model based on my drawings helping them building that CG model, or even maquette, like a stop motion. For example, for Leica, I did work for Leica a few times. I did drawings to help them make the puppets, you know. So for me, that's the rewarding part of it.
That is perfect. And I guess beyond the world of Scoob, I forget where I saw this, but I think I saw online that you designed a couple of characters called Uncle Ned, and I think one of them was perhaps going to be in the follow-up of Scoob Holiday Haunt. Do you remember if you worked on that at all?
No, Uncle Ned. You're talking about the Abraham Lincoln look like?
Yeah,
character?
I think there was a couple.
Like with that top hat?
Yeah.
Okay, that one was for a Disney project called My Peoples that I mentioned earlier. The movie that they're going to make hand drawn in CG. That was one of the characters I was supposed to do that they canceled. And well, I think maybe, I don't know if you heard that, but we're making a new Scooby movie with the kids, a Christmas movie. And there's a character in the movie called Uncle Ned too. And he is, in the movie, he's Fred's uncle in the movie. And he owns a hotel and everything. So we're making, I don't know if you know the story, but we're making that movie. We finished, and Warner Brothers decided not to release it. And we did so much work. I did even animation. There's a shadowy character that I animated by hand in the movie, together with the CG. It was, besides doing the designs, we designed new characters, you know. Beautiful movie, Christmas with the kids, perfect. And Warner decided to pull the plug and cancel. The movie's done. And Michael Kurinsky, that you talked to him, he was the director.
Yeah.
Him and another, yeah.
It's such a shame because we interviewed Michael Kurinsky about the first Scoob movie, and that was when Scoob Holiday Haunt was, I guess it was known to be in production. And it was almost like a sick twist of fate, because we premiered that interview, and then 4 days later is when the news came in. And it's such a shame because from what Michael was talking about, it just seemed like so much love and attention went into that movie. And I guess so from your point of view, what was it like, I guess, to be in that situation working on the movie, maybe at the early stages?
Okay, I was in that movie from the very beginning, this Holiday Hunt. And was great, like, again, working with the crew, the same team. Michael was the director now, because on the first movie, he was our director. This one, he was the director. And no, it was great working on with the team and doing my designs, and things are going great. And then they had a sequence, which it's great because it's great that they did that, but nobody's gonna see it. It was a sequence in the style of the original show. It's like when they remember something in the past, they show that as a 2D animation, like that was similar to the original show, and I did the model sheets for that. And my friends in another studio did the animation, that style of animation. So we had that, and then there's a shadow character. They decided, hey, let's do that in hand drawn. I did the animation, which was one of my. I really enjoyed doing that. And we also had some smoke that comes in, that becomes a hand, and to lure them into the shop. To all hand drawn by hand. I did the whole thing, and the story was beautiful. It was very nice, like a Christmas story. Uncle Ned was a great character. I designed Uncle Ned too. So it's a lot of work and some beautiful animation done, some nice designs and color, beautiful art direction that nobody's gonna see. It's like, it's a shame, you know. I don't understand that.
It does seem like you did quite a lot. So was your role in that movie, was that character design, or was it characters? So are there any characters that you were particularly happy with for that movie?
Yeah, Uncle Ned was good. I liked it. Yeah, that was the main character that I really liked it. And also there's a villain that was like this guy with the goggles, and it's very kind of scary. In the shadow version, I did the hand draw animation, but the CG version was very different design too. In turn, that's one of the designs I liked. It really came out really well, you know. Yeah, Uncle Ned was great, and the kids were pretty much from the first movie when they were kids. The sequence when they were kids is pretty much the same designs. So nothing new there, but the other characters were kind of nice. Like Uncle Ned for me is my favorite, and this villain with the goggles.
And you've mentioned a few of the scenes. It kind of like pains me even more, especially that scene that you were talking about with the original animation style, the hand drawing. Like, just to see that would be absolutely incredible. But are there any other sequences from the film that you think would like be a real standout thing for people to see?
Yeah, there was like a movie that would show the people who love the Scooby Doo universe. They would love it because they tried to put everything they knew from the original in there. First of all, the directors, they really appreciate the original, and the artists who worked on the original, they even know the name of the guy who painted the backgrounds for the original show. So they tried to do the same kind of background for that sequence. So it would be a movie with, you know, a little bit of the old show in there, some hand-drawn animation, and also characters that felt like in the universe of the Scooby Doo, show. You know, it's pretty much the universe, that flavor. You know, so it was I think it would be perfect for the lovers of Scooby Doo everywhere. But it's a shame they didn't finish. I mean, they didn't want to release.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I mean, there is some aspect where it was almost a situation where like it became quite a big news piece at the time, and I remember we set up a petition. There was several other petitions set up, and the whole entire Scooby-Doo fan base like kind of came together and started the hashtags and just kind of trying to make their voice heard. I mean, from your point of view, were you aware of any of that movement, or that there was quite a big outcry to revive that movie at all? And like, what was your response to that?
Yeah, I saw on the social media. I thought it was great. You know, I thought, well, people, who knows, maybe they can see that and change their minds. I don't know. Executives are very tough, you know, and it's very hard to change because of that. But you never know. You know, I was hoping it would change something, but
yeah, hopefully.
I wonder if there would be maybe one day they might change their minds and release it. So it's something that I remember talking to Michael. He doesn't believe that. He believes that they're never gonna show it. You never know. So
yeah, it was kind of a bit of a sad situation, but I think I think that it's a testament to the balance, because Michael was very much of that mindset. And last time we spoke to the other director, Bill Haller, he was almost very much of the opposite mindset, where he was like, no, eventually it's going to happen. And so I think it would be great to see. And I'll kind of
Yeah.
include all of the petitions and stuff in the description of this video to hopefully
Cool.
kind of reignite
Fantastic.
the conversation, because I think it would be like the best Christmas present for 2023. Thinking all the way back, they've got
That'd be
enough time
nice.
to kind
Yeah.
of get stuff together. But I guess that
Like,
was kind of a negative aspect, although I think it sounds like a great movie. Negative that it was cancelled, but looking forward to stuff that's a bit more positive. Are there any upcoming projects that you're working on at the moment, or that you have coming up, that you can kind of talk about?
yeah, I'm working on this feature film in hand drawn for about this dog. I cannot say much about it, but it's about a dog, you know? And it's directed by Gendy Tartakovsky. He is the director of Hotel Transylvania, you know, the first 2 or 3. He did Samurai Jack. He did Primal, several projects. You know, he's like a top director, and this is his first feature film completely hand drawn. So he got lots of former Disney artists, and also animators from all over the world. You know, there are people doing that animation in Spain, France, everywhere. I'm here in Brazil working for them. Yeah, I'm working on that. It's all hand drawn, and also I'm doing some. I did tons of work recently, but I'm also doing some designs for a feature film for Netflix. It's a new feature film, something new, completely new. I'm helping with some designs.
That is amazing. And I guess in terms of people watching this, like, they've probably been very impressed with your work and hopefully want to see some more of what you're doing. So is there an ideal place for people to kind of follow you online, or to keep up to date with what you're doing next?
Yeah, for me, it has to be Instagram is the one that I use the most. Also Facebook, but I think Instagram is the one that has more people seeing my stuff. Sometimes I post pencil tests, designs, even from Scooby. Sometimes I post designs there. Yeah, all my work is on Instagram. Sandro Cleuzo.
I guess to that end at all, is there any chance that you do at some point share some stuff from Holiday Haunt on your social media, or would that be completely like Warner Brothers, raining like
Yeah,
agents down?
that's a good question, because I would love to show what I did, because otherwise nobody's gonna see. I have to see with them if it's possible. If they say okay, yes, but usually they don't like it. So I'll have to get permission for that, because it's not released. So I'm gonna look into that, because I want to get people to see what I did. I did some animation that I'm proud of, and designs that I want people to see. But they might say no, because who knows? I'll try.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. It would be amazing to see, but hopefully you do get that green light to go ahead with that. And I guess
Yeah.
that's all the questions that I had down for you today. I suppose I just want to thank you again for joining us, and for the amount of time that you've given today, because you've been incredibly generous with both the answers that you've given and also the time that you've given. So I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome, and thanks for having me on the show. It's been fun talking to you and talk about my experiences and about Scooby. Thanks so much. Thanks for
It has
having me.
been absolutely incredible. And fingers crossed, hopefully there's going to be some opportunities to speak again in the future. Like, hopefully there's some more things on the horizon. But I guess in terms of wrapping this up, I want to thank the audience for watching. And I guess if you want to find all of the social links that we've mentioned, including the petition, I'll leave that linked in the description down below. And if you do want to see more, then please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.